Paltrocast.
Pete, for me it's good afternoon. For you, it's good morning, right?
Yeah, it's still morning.
Well, a two-parter besides how are you is it Pete or Peter and Holmstrom? There's no umlauts in your Zoom name. Is that Zoom screwing you over?
No, it's sort of it's just easier in this country to not put the umlauts. It just causes problems.
Right.
I have to go back and edit them out so often that I kind of leave it out unless it's just for fun. And it's Pete or Peter. It's like whatever's easiest for you, whatever seems right.
We'll go with Pete for now, and we were connected to talk about Pete International Airport. Now, as a longtime Dandies fan, I remember that was a track on the Come Down album. Is that where the Pete International Airport name originated, or was that from even before that?
It came from that track in particular, which was named after Tony Lash, the engineer, on that record and our first record. He had recorded me making just a bunch of noise with a bunch of pedals, and I had came back into the control room and he had titled the track Pete International Airport. So yeah, he named my future side project before I even thought about that. You know, I knew I had the name first.
That's a very good story with all that. Did you have that name going for years, or is just when it was time for the solo career, you're going, what should I call it? What should I call it? And that name came to you.
I always knew I was going to use that name. I just didn't know when. And yeah, I kind of just got frustrated with a lot of the ideas I was bringing into the Dandies just not being used, and
Right.
felt like they were worth recording, and yeah, just finally got off my ass and did it.
You had the George Harrison scenario where you went, these are good songs, gotta go solo.
Yeah, I mean, I found that, you know, within the Dandies there wasn't enough, especially back then, there wasn't enough room for my ideas. And it was a good thing because I've now managed to, I guess, hone my skills a little bit more, and I'm bringing that back into the Dandies. So much so that I co-wrote half the upcoming record with Courtney. So
Right.
yeah, as opposed to the token one song.
Yeah, the first few records are one or two cuts where your stuff would be unfortunately buried. And I'm sure we as fans want to hear the stuff that did not make the cut. But it's great to hear that you have an outlet, that you get to do the major global rock band thing, and then you get to do the thing where you call all the shots as well. Because a lot of times when you're in a big band, like for example, not a lot of U2 side projects.
No, but I think that's also an even, like they well, I don't know how it actually works within the band, but it definitely, they were very collaborative in the songwriting side. You know, it's even split. So, or that's what I've heard. So maybe the need wasn't there. Not everybody in the Dandies writes music either. It's like, you know, it's like I'm constantly doing it, like whether I really want to or not. You know, I pick up a guitar and sometimes something will happen.
Right. And one of the collaborations on the latest single, the 7-inch, whatever you want to call that, is Rachel from Slow Dive. How far back does that friendship go back?
So that goes back to me seeing a post of hers where she liked my record. She had, and I thought that Anton had sent it to her because he had put out my last record, or somehow she had got it that way, but it turns out she had bought it. So I have no idea how she even heard of what I was doing. But I saw that, and then when the time came and I had a track that I could see her singing on, I just reached out, like, kind of, I hadn't met her,
Hmm.
so yeah, it was just kind of blindly. I think we'd exchanged a few messages here and there, but I hadn't actually met her in person.
Hmm.
Um,
And you mentioned Anton. Sorry to cut you off. It's
uh,
awesome to see how long that friendship has been going for, because I think the average person who saw the movie Dig believed what they saw entirely.
yeah,
They didn't see, hey, this is a professional wrestling rivalry to an extent mixed with creative film editing.
yeah, that's kind of the best way to put it. Um, I mean, it's kind of a bummer the way that movie portrayed everything. Because I mean, Anton was at my wedding. He got up and sang a song, and Andy, the filmmaker, was there,
Yeah.
and I assume she filmed it. She filmed everything. So, but that doesn't make for her story. So it didn't end up in there.
Yeah,
Um,
my biggest takeaway from the film was not the rivalry stuff. It was the interview where Courtney's talking to the journalist, I think in Greece, where he says, we're not a heavy airplay band like Green Day. And they go, actually. And then it shows how big the Dandies were slash are in Europe. So that maybe the Capital deal didn't go as great as it should have over here. But in Europe, you always had that saving grace. You never went out of style, etc. You were not a 90s band like idiots might call it. So when
yeah,
I've seen before, it's cool that you get to do your major rock band thing and then also the thing where you call all the shots. That's
yeah.
not a bad career trajectory.
It's fantastic. I'm certainly not complaining. I'm very happy that I get to do. Well, I've got far too many projects at the moment, but
Oh, tell me more about them because I'm sidetracking you with stuff that
oh
happened 20 years ago.
no, well, I mean, I don't know. I've been another thing that happened during the pandemic besides recording this latest PIA release.
Mhm.
Was Jason Adams, he was the only singer on the first PIA record, and he's another really longtime friend. He wanted to record his sort of solo record, and so we did that, and then he put a band together for it, and we're in the middle of mixing the second record now, and that band's called Sun Adams,
Mhm.
also on Little Cloud Records. Uh, um, yeah, and I've been doing a bunch of remixes and doing some music for video games too. So
Oh,
my hands are quite full at the moment, but
when
it's
you
good.
write for video games, what name does it come out under?
It's all my name or Pete International Airport or both. Um, I didn't want to get more confusing.
Well, another notable thing about you, still in Portland all these years later, but when the Dandies took off, Portland was not this cool, tech centric, culturally relevant city like it is now. Did you ever leave Portland in between the early days and now?
I made a well, yeah, I guess a short little stint in New York. Um, it wasn't anything that I knew it wasn't gonna be permanent by any means, and it ended up being maybe shorter than even expected. Um,
Got it.
besides that, no, I haven't. I mean, I guess I've thought about leaving a lot, but I don't know where to go. That would be better, because nowhere's necessarily better, and everywhere's expensive, and I don't know. It's everywhere's not great, I suppose.
Everywhere it's not great. That hopefully that's a song title for a future Pete International Airport.
God, if only I could be slightly more positive. Um,
Yeah, so where I'm going with that with the Portland thing is you came out of that scene Everclear did too, although, you were both on Tim Kerr Records, although Art thinks of himself as an LA person. So how did you know that the Dandies did not have to move to LA or New York to make it and get signed?
Um, because we got signed before we've even thought about moving.
Oh,
I mean, it all just happened pretty quick, and then we were just traveling so much. We were constantly on tour in those early years that it didn't matter where we were. Um, Probably would have saved a little bit of money if we had moved to LA, just from the amount of flights that we had took back then. It seemed like we were in LA probably 4 or 5 times a year. But besides that, no, I don't. It just never it never really even crossed our minds that moving would be a good move, and I don't think it would have been. It's like maybe moving to London would have been
sure.
would have helped the career in some ways, but maybe yeah, you never know.
There's that list of bands who did from the States who moved to London, and then that's what made them stand out and get signed, like the Stray Cats and Chrissy Hind, all that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But in your case, somehow with dumb luck, you guys knew, hey, Portland is the future. All the
Yeah,
tech companies are coming here and Nike.
yeah. I don't. It certainly doesn't seem like that right now. It's pretty grim here at the moment.
Right.
But from what I can tell, it's pretty grim all along the West Coast, and maybe the rest of the world too. I don't know.
It is a grim world right now. Unfortunately, we have music like yours to uplift us. That's the optimistic side of it. So are there gigs planned for Pete International Airport?
Not yet. I've been trying to figure out what to do with the live thing. I have this idea that I want to do it as a two-piece electronic like thing, but try and do it more old school, like no laptops, maybe not even an MPC, just drum machines and sequencers and synths.
So like old school, they might be giants.
I was thinking old school, maybe Depeche Mode, like from the early '80s kind of thing. Like, um, but I don't know how any of that's done, and it's like, but that's why I want to do it. But it's also what's kind of holding me back.
You know who might know a thing or two? Jeremy Scherer. He might know how to do that.
Oh, he does, but he's also like super MPC guy, so he would know the modern way of doing it more than the old school.
Got it. So two quick questions, and then I'll let you go because you've given me so much information as it is. The first one is, when you're not busy with music, and I see a lot of incredible guitars behind you, I see jazz masters and whatnot. What's the number two hobby? Because all these years later, you're kind of a mystery in a good way, because music, sometimes you want the people to have the mystique. And then when you find out that Alice Cooper plays golf every day, it's hard to love the darkness of that when you know that he's on a golf course at 7 a.m.
Yeah. I don't play golf. I guess I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of art stuff that's going on, that I'm trying to keep up on, because that's what I went to school for.
Mm-hmm.
And I still enjoy doing that. I don't seem to get enough time to really do it. I'm also I don't know. I'm always been into plants and animals and stuff.
So to paraphrase and rudely interrupt you again, your life is create, create, create.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't hear any, dumb stuff, well, Real Housewives is my jam when I'm bored or feel, none of that.
No. That's all. If I watch too many shows or something, I start feeling guilty, and I pick up a guitar and uh try and write songs. So yeah, it's, I don't know. There's a bit of a weird drive going on at the moment that I don't feel comfortable unless I'm making something. Um, and that does lead to little bouts of depression because you can't come up with good shit all the time. So, you know, and I should feel okay with that, but whatever. It's helping create some really cool stuff. So I'm trying to just go with it.
That makes sense. And the last question is related to your album. You have members of Cheap Trick, Pang Attack, Dark Horses, A Place to Bury Strangers, etc. on that record. Cheap Trick is one of my favorite bands ever. Now, when I think of the music that I think that Peter listens to, I think of Depeche Mode and Duran Duran. But
Yeah.
were you originally a Cheap Trick guy, or was that a friendship that was born on, being on the road and running into them at every festival?
Um, there's actually a funny story about me meeting Tom. But Cheap Trick's always been around. Just one of those bands to me, like Tom Petty, where it's like you don't have to own a record, but like half their catalog. And I think it's just, I don't know, growing up listening to the radio, it just was always there. So but anyway, the story, I was working as a runner on a big stadium show, just during some downtime. Uh and the show was Heart, Cheap Trick, and Joan Jett, or Heart. I
Oh
don't know,
yeah,
whatever
the
order
Free
it
for
was.
All Rock and Roll Hall of Fame tour. So that's five,
Okay.
6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And I showed up with a van and was assigned to Cheap Trick, and I was just sitting in catering waiting for somebody to tell me to go do something. And Rick walks out and goes, just takes one look at me and goes, "You're in a band." Not knowing that I was his, the runner for his band that day. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in the Dandy Warhols." And he goes, "Hang on," and runs and gets Tom, because Tom's a huge fan. Like, did not know that. But at that, from that point on, we just kind of stayed in contact. He's wore my t-shirts on stage for years, and so people would always send me photographs. It's like, "Did you see this? Tom's wearing your shirt." I'm like, "Yes, I know, I sent it to him." But yeah, and then like the song that he played on it, it's I had, when I sent it to Jason Russo, the singer on that one,
Mhm.
it was an incomplete idea, and it was not intended for this record. It was going to be for the next one. I thought he was working on a different song, but the idea made me think of him, and so I was like, this would be a cool thing to do. And so he like finished it and sent it to me. And so then I tried to do a bass part for it, and came up with a great bass line that will be a completely different song, but it didn't work with his vocals. And it just popped into my head, Tom Peterson, and get him to play his 12-string bass on that. And he sent it back, and it was just so great.
In your friendship, when Tom's not available, does Robin Taylor Jr., Robin Taylor Xander, fill in for that? I botched that joke. Sorry.
All good.
Yeah, I think that's really a fantastic thing, that to have a utility player in your band that can fill everyone's parts on a moment's notice, because they can do that. Kudos to those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But the bottom line is, Pete, so great to see you have new music. Really looking forward to what's to come from you as a video game composer. your label guy music as yourself as Pete International Airport, the dandies, etc., the remixes. Keep up all the great work, and thanks for the many years of great art.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I don't know how to do anything else, so this is pretty much what the world's gonna get.
Paltrocast.
Jake, thank you for taking the time to speak with me again. Grateful is still the new record. You're on the road again in about a week, right? Some shows in Washington State.
Yes, uh-huh. Yeah, looking forward to it. Very excited.
Are you playing a lot of Grateful on this tour?
We are, especially the instrumental pieces. I'm a horrible singer, so it wouldn't I wouldn't be able to pull off the vocal tunes, but no, but I am. I'm just truly I'm very very proud of this record because I got to collaborate with all the artists that I grew up listening to. The when I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, so my first exposure to music was the traditional music here, um and so I grew up listening to the people on this record, guys like Henry Kapono, Brother Nolan, Kavika Kahiapo. I mean, it's just so to be able to collaborate with them and do this, was so meaningful. The album's called Grateful because, well, for two reasons. One, is a song written by a friend of mine, Justin Kavika Young, who, we both started out our music careers together, here in Hawaii. But the second part is also is also that there's a Japanese saying, it's Okage Sama Day, which means I am what I am because of you. And that's really what this album is about. It's about recognizing and having the opportunity, to express my gratitude, to all the musicians who paved the way for us, who came before us, and really inspired us. And it really is Okage Sama Day, meaning, because of these musicians, I am the musician I am, because of their influence and their inspiration.
You mentioned Japanese language right there, and I know you get to go back there in March. Is this probably your 20th tour of Japan?
It's I've been there quite a bit, because my touring career actually started there.
Right.
Even before I started touring, the mainland and other places. Back in 2001, I signed with my first major record deal with a Japanese label. It was Sony Music Japan, and that was the first record deal I signed as a solo artist. Because I played in bands prior to that, like in the 90s and stuff. And my first band was a band out of Hawaii called Pure Heart, and we did a lot of traditional and contemporary Hawaiian music. But as a soloist, that was my first exposure to to trying to write and to do arrangements all on my own and tackling instrumental pieces. So it was quite exciting. But it wasn't until 2005 when I had when I had a video that went viral on YouTube, that really opened the doors, to other countries and to play in the continental US and
Right.
Europe and different parts of Asia and Canada and Australia. So it's really been such a blessing, and I'm loving it. I love having the opportunity to perform and to connect with audiences and communities, all over the world, through the ukulele. So I'm looking forward, to this upcoming tour, and especially to play songs off of this new record, because like I said, it was a very meaningful project to me, and yeah, so I hope people enjoy it.
You're a very modest guy. I've been in Japan when you've been there, and I saw how big the venues you were playing over there. It reminds me of, say, like Cheap Trick with Budokan, or
Oh man.
it's that kind of a thing where you go, that guy is huge in Japan and it's legitimate. And I say that because some of the venues that you're playing in here in the States, they're respectable theaters, but they are huge theaters overseas in Japan. So is the set list different? In other words, do you have a catalog that specifically gets played in Japan that's different from when you're doing US touring?
Yeah, I do have a lot of albums that were only released in Japan, that weren't released in the States. And so so I do perform those pieces a lot. And sometimes they cross over. Like for example, there's a song called Ichigo Ichie that was only released in Japan early on. And I remember a while back, someone from the States had heard me play that in Japan, and they were like, "Why don't you do that song?" When you play outside of Japan. And I just thought, well, I don't know. I guess in my mind, I just thought it was. I just wasn't sure if people would connect with it, But recently, we've been playing it in our sets, and yeah, people have been really responding to it. And a friend of mine, Ron Artis, wrote some lyrics to it recently, and we just recorded it, the vocal version, on the new Grateful album as well. So I just so I've been kind of using a lot of the songs now that I do play in Japan, over in the States, and they seem, people seem to enjoy it. It's a different vibe, right? Like there's a piece called Sakura Sakura. That's a traditional Japanese folk tune about the cherry blossom season, and it's completely different from anything else that I would normally play outside of Japan. And even the sound of the instrument, I use a different plucking technique that's pretty I don't know if you've ever heard it, the arrangement that I play of that, but it almost mimics the sound of the koto, which is a Japanese harp. So, so I love doing things like that. And in Japan, I used to play that all the time. And recently I've been playing it outside of Japan as well.
It's so intriguing to me how well versed you are with Hawaiian traditional music where you grew up, because I know about your metal influences as well, which is kind of the opposite. Sure, you do have your overlap, your Marty Friedmans of the world, when you could be in a band called Hawaii and play metal and have the Japan thing going on. But where was the metal influence starting versus the Hawaiian local music?
Oh yeah, that stuff that definitely came a lot later. Like when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old is when I started, being exposed to all these other genres and different, guitar players especially. But so yeah, so I just love the energy of that music, and the sound and just the way it made me feel back then. But instead of seeking out the guitar, I remember thinking to myself, like, how can I create that same kind of energy and that same feeling, with the ukulele? So that's kind of what led to experimenting with a lot of effect pedals and amplifiers, and really figuring out how to amplify my instrument in a way that wasn't just louder but also musical. And you brought up Marty Friedman. Marty Friedman has always been one of my heroes. I just love his tone and his phrasing, the way he plays. He's such a shredder, but he has so much finesse in his playing, and I absolutely love that. Jeff Beck was another one who, oh man, just I could listen to him play. I mean, forever. He's just so brilliant, and the tones that he would get. And I think so. Those became my influences. Was how can I really change up the timbre and the color, on the instrument, just to be more expressive, or to not more expressive, but just to express different things, right? And evoke different kinds of emotions.
Paltrocast.